Moo, man. Are you a good boy? Ciao, bello, and welcome home to a podcast where you can put those, come here, come see, where you can put those growing pains down and pick up an ounce of relief. My name is Kambreya, and I am your host, cultivation manager, nursery grower, and anything else you need in the garden. Last week, we concluded the two-part on propagation, and since our clones have had 2 weeks to root, we are going to start thinking about plant structures. So, what are you doing? I love you. So, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about topping. Episode 5 is going to be in regards to a form of HST, and it is something that I have found to be super controversial around the growers. Stinky's head. I love you. Early veg is my time to shine. So let's dive into the early ways we can manage and manipulate the structures of our cannabis plants. Speaking of controversy, before you skip this video, please just hold on. A lot of growers, they're not big fans of topping. I can definitely see why. And I think in some instances it's not appropriate to do a top, but there are times where absolutely you should be topping. Before we get into the what, where's, why's, how's, and when's, let's talk about why a grower would top their plants to begin with. Topping creates predictability. If you have a canopy and you want to yield greater than what your plants are yielding, you have the option of topping them. Basically, you're taking that apical meristem branch and you are cutting it off so that way the energy is going from the top and it's being redirected into those lateral branches so that they all get a piece of the pie, so to speak. I mean, as it stands naturally, the plant, it wants to grow like a Christmas tree. It has a dominant top cola, and then it has lateral branches that kind of stagger off into the mid canopy, as I call it, so the middle of the plant. Now, when you want to restructure a plant by taking off its top cola, that is going to give the lateral branches more of a chance to get light penetration and also, again, that energy that would have been focused on that long vertical branch is now going to be distributed throughout the arms of the plant. Topping also gives you a lot of uniformity within your genetics, and this is really good for production, commercial grows. We love topping. It's a lot more reliable than its other counterpart. I also find topping to be very useful for growers who have a tighter setup. An example of an instant like this would be if you couldn't raise your lights higher. So your lights were already as high as they can go. And for example, you've accidentally vegged your plant too long, or you put new genetics in the room thinking they wouldn't stretch so much, or whatever happened and they stretched, they're now reaching the top of the light. You can top them, and that will buy you some time, so to speak. But one of my personal favorite things about topping is, those fanners at the top of that Mary stem are just honestly just shadowing everything. So when you take it out and then the whole plant has all this like room and airflow and light penetration, that's another reason why it is increasing your yield, because not only are you getting more light penetration to your other lateral branches, you are also giving them a better chance to all produce a little bit more. That is the reasons why a grower would top, but let's talk about how are we going to top? What does that look like? What does that mean? Like stated before, it is a type of high stress training. This is not actually a bad thing to do to your plants early on in their veg cycle. When you top, you could either take the top node or you can take a branch. Depending how much you want to bring down the height of the plant is going to dictate how big the cut is going to actually be. So how I dictate okay. So how I dictate where I'm going to ooh, what is this medium rare? Is this hold on. Oh my god. Let me see. Is this medium rare? Can I see? Is it medium rare? Let me see. Hey, Alicia. Thank you. Okay, so when I am going in a room to top, oh, when I'm going into a room to top, I am looking at all of the plants that are going into the succeeding round to reload a room. And I'm asking myself a series of questions. How many of these plants are the same batches and the same cultivars? Thank you. I'm not getting the chicken right now. I'm not doing that with you with the chicken right now. Say hi to everyone. Look right here on the camera. So back to this though. When I go to top, I am looking at how many plants in this batch are significantly taller than the majority of the canopy. I want to take those and I want to bring those down and even those out with the canopy if that's your goal. You will notice that once you top your plant, it's going to droop down a bit. It might look like it's sleeping or which have you. Just know that that's completely normal. It's honestly just wounded because you've taken the top off. Oh. Okay, I don't know how many of these I'm going to be able to shove under here, but and then depending on the cultivar, it might take 5 or 7 days for that plant to fully be ramping back up again. When it does, it will have 2 stems instead of one. This is very useful when trying to fill up your technique. What the topping is essentially doing is it is taking the auxin and distributing it to the lateral growth so that the growth can accelerate in those areas. I think a part of the reason why there's so much controversy with topping is if you don't top, all that energy is going into that top cola, which means like a really fine, nice, and tasty, juicy, delicious, satisfying nug. But if you're thinking about it with a business mind in terms of commercial facilities, I can see why people do it. It's really all about the end result of that flower. Is it going to be something that is going to be more of a top shelf novelty bud, or is it something that is supposed to be produced by the masses? These are all things to take into consideration when you're going to top if you decide to do that. And just so we're clear, there are some cultivars that I would not top, Max included in this, some Death Bubbas and other gassier strains, garlic sherb, things of that nature. They don't need to be topped, really. The space in between the nodes is so small that if you top it, or if you fem it, God forbid, that is gonna I don't know, it's gonna grow like this. Like, I don't know if you know what this means, but between that and if it's not trellised properly, that can cause quite a bit of issues for you. I feel my body getting tense just thinking about that. So, know your cultivar. Topping is really popular amongst the exotic varieties because they stretch and they are unforgiving. And especially if you are dealing with genetics that stretch like crazy and you are growing indoors, topping is it's just the answer. To summarize, topping, if done properly, you can reap benefits from yielding more, but if done wrong, it will stall your veg time. So, I'm going to provide you with what I do in my max and mins in terms of the plant when I would start topping versus when I wouldn't top. So, let's get into when I would top. I would top once my plant has established roots. That is very important. And number two, I am going to top when my plant has 5 or 6 nodes on it. I have done it accidentally with 4 nodes and it basically stalled. It did not keep up with the rest of the clones in my trays, so I would not recommend that. I would say it is safe to top from then alongwards up until 2 weeks until you flip. I am not going to be topping my plants right before I flip, and I will tell you why. Once I flip, I am dropping my nitrogen in my feed. The plant is not kicking on into, I need to grow, I need to vegetate, I need to grow leaf, I need to grow branches. By the time I flip, I'm going to want my branches already established there. That's my ground. And then once that 12-12 light cycle kicks in, then it's like, boom, I want them to be flowering. I don't want them to be focused on growing leaves and branches. So that is why. What I would love to do is top 2 weeks before, have my 2 branches pop right out, and then boom, be ready to flower. Oh, and another reason why you don't want to top too close to flower is because if those branches stop growing, you're going to have flowering sites that are going to be very close together because the new growth on those branches did not have enough time to fully develop. Now you're going to get problems like PM, microclimates, hot spots within your canopies because the spacing between the branches is not enough for airflow to get in between those. So just please just trust me because I've done it so many times, right? Like ugh, I have topped so many things wrong. Topping is one of those things that lasts with the plant throughout its entire life. It's like a tattoo. So really important to understand where you want to take that top and how often you want to top it. Now, and I'm only saying this because I've made this mistake myself. If you have a plant that is already a string bean, whether it be because the genetics were tired or you've waterlogged the fuck out of your plant, if you top that, like in theoretically, when you top a plant, it's supposed to create greater yield. But if you top those kind of plants and those branches, you're essentially just going to lose that yield because that branch, it's already so small in circumference that once you top it, this circumference is going to divide into two because it needs to make two branches, right? So if already your plant can't support itself, then topping it is not the right answer for your plants and your cultivar at that time. You want to top strong branches. You want to top branches that are going to be able to support two more branches and also all the flowering sites that are going to come along with that. Now, if you forget to top because it happens, okay? It's a small task that could potentially be forgotten, and you're well on your way to flower or in week 1 or 2 of flower. Your option here, because you can't top, would be to get creative with the trellis. Now, I spent a lot of time hating trellis, but I actually love it now. For example, I could trellis a bed of 150, 180 plants in 30 minutes. I'm not even kidding. And I would take more time to obviously train them out better, but I'm talking putting the net on and then bringing it, lowering it down, and some basic training. You know what I mean? 30 minutes, 20 minutes, that's really all it takes. And I am being very generous because most of the time it doesn't even take that long. So, getting creative with your trellis is going to give you the opportunity to hit those lateral branches that would have otherwise not gotten any light. And that is the purpose. Another workaround that you have is also outdressing your plant as well, or not taking the outdress up so high. Some questions I'm asking myself when I go to top, I'm looking for significantly taller plants in my canopy. What plants are healthy enough to top? How many plants of this batch are going into what room? Okay, what else? Are these the same cultivars? Because, oh, and what are the cultivars really? Because when your plants are in veg, I mean, sure, some clones might be a little bit taller than other clones, but until it starts to flower, you're not going to know really how you need to top it. So, to know the genetics and the lineage of the cultivars that you're working with is really important, also because of instances like this. So, once I've gone over the records, established what my mission is, what the end result is going to be, what cultivars I'm working with, and what are my resources, then I can go ahead and confidently go in for the kill. As well, on the topic of cultivars, is your exos are probably going to be needing topping more regularly than your indica strains, and that is due to internodal spacing and stretching. All right, moving into another technique of topping, and we call this FIM or fimming, and that stands for fuck, I missed it. Exactly what it says is exactly as it does. When you are fimming a plant, you want to take the top, but just a piece of the top. And what that does is it is still sending that auxin down into the cola, into the other branches, but somewhere down the line, it gets confused because it's like, is the top gone? Is it not? It sends that plant into shock. And so what ends up happening is you'll get like 3 to 6 shoots. Okay. But that's not every time that you'll get that. It's more unpredictable. You could get 3 or you could get 6. So, depending on the cultivar you're working with, this could be really amazing or this could be really not so amazing, as you can imagine. So, the key takeaway with fimming is you are not completely removing the top, and therefore it is creating this confusion for the hormones in that plant. Though fimming is really good for nursery practices and some cultivars, it's kind of a gamble because you're not knowing what you're going to get. This can look like inconsistent growing patterns, sporadic growing patterns, and in addition to all that, it is harder to replicate. So, production sites are generally not going to take to fimming as much as they would topping, for example. Now that we've gone over a little bit about fimming and topping, I would like to give you my personal recommendation when it comes to the birds and the bees of fimming and topping. Number one, I believe that before we even consider topping or fimming, we need to consider cultivar and root stability. We need to make sure that that plant has an established root zone. If your plant can't drink and uptake the nutrients to grow more vigorous branches, it's not going to do that. Your plants are ultimately going to decide if they need to get topped or not. Capiche? You cannot fuck with nature, okay? It will tell you exactly what it wants. And I keep saying this, but it is so true. The plants talk to me and I might sound crazy, and if the plants talk to you too, drop a plant down below in the comments. But yeah, my personal opinion is that topping is circumstantial. I have had times where I have topped and it has been amazing, and I have had times where I've topped and it has not been amazing. When it comes down to topping, it is entirely up to you as the grower if that is something that you want. If you like a more controlled and uniform canopy, I would recommend going for it. If you want a more natural plant and you want to yield as much with the branches that it is producing itself, you've got really strong genetics and you want to keep it that way, go ahead and do that as well. My suggestion is to read the plant to know exactly if it wants to be topped or not. If you're operating on a commercial scale, I would recommend topping. But if you are operating on a more craft scale where you want quality and consistency, I would say not topping, because at the end of the day, you are taking that energy and dividing it by 2. So it depends where that weed is going. That's the biggest thing that I'll say. It all really just depends on the output that you want in terms of your crop. Bottom line for me is if you want structure and control, go ahead and top your crop. If you want chaos and to be a little bit more risque, then go ahead and fim it up. On that note, it is coming to the end, so I'm going to put out a disclosure followed by a heartfelt thank you. This information is simply meant to be a guide so that you can navigate your gardens with ease. Well, Bello, that is going to be a wrap for this week, and I need to take this minute to thank you for watching. You can connect with me on Instagram at lettuce wraps with 3 T's or Lilith and Lettuce. And if you like what you heard today, don't hesitate to show me some love and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Anyways, until next week, arrivederci.